Big, bold sunflowers are so beautiful to stamp with during the autumn season. And when it comes to Thanksgiving, I like to send cards to family and friends, not to celebrate the turkey, but to let them know that I'm thankful that they're in my life. But with Christmas and Hanukkah right around the corner, it's always nice to have a quick and easy card idea that won't take a lot of time to send that message of thanks. The faux torn edges technique helps you create a look of a layer with a quick swish of a sponge. Let me show you the tools and products I'm going to use to make this card. First, you're going to need some cardstock for your card base, and I'm using the heavy base weight ivory cardstock. Then you're going to need some ink, and I'm going to use the Memento Peanut Brittle, the Tangelo ink, and some of the Tuxedo black. I'm also going to use a couple of sponge daubers, one for the peanut brittle and one for the Tangelo. Then you're going to need some stamps, and for today's card, I'm using the beautiful sunflower stamp from the brand new stamp set by Melanie Muenchinger called Stately Flowers 5. I love this stamp, and I love the greeting that goes with it. Here I'm using the greeting Happy Thanksgiving, and it's so nice to have a Happy Thanksgiving greeting in my collection. Then you're also going to need a thin piece of cardstock, and I'm using some of the 80-pound white cardstock for this part of the project. To begin, I'm going to score my card in half. Since this is going to be a single layer card, I'm going to just take this heavy base weight ivory cardstock and score it at 4 1/4 inches. Now, when you're scoring our heavy base weight cardstock, you do want to make sure that you score it several times before you fold it. You really want to make sure that you have a nice deep crease in the cardstock, and that will prevent cracking. So I've scored it 3 times, and now I'm going to fold it. And you see how easily that folded, and there's no crack there at all. And now I'm going to take my score tool, and I'm going to use the tool to flatten out that score line. Now I have that nice fold that doesn't have any cracks at all. You can see that. And I have a nice heavy card base. So my next step is I'm going to take this piece of white cardstock and I'm going to tear it. And I'm not going to try to tear it too straight. I want it to have some bends and curves in it, but not so much that there's a definite huge dip in it anywhere. So there we go. There's my torn piece of cardstock. Now I'm going to open my card base up flat again, and I'm going to start by just coming down a little bit onto the card. So you can see here's where the top of the card is, and I'm just going to come down a little bit, maybe about a 1/2 inch. Okay. And now I'm going to grab the peanut brittle ink, and I'm going to ink it up using one of the sponge daubers. Okay, so I've inked up one of the sponge daubers. Now, holding this paper very still, because I really don't want it to move once I get started, I'm going to use a light circular motion. I'm going to add color all along that edge. So, it's going to look something like this. And I'm going to come down just a little bit so it fades down to a little bit lighter, like that. So there is the top part of my faux torn edge. Now I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to do the other side. And I want to make sure that I leave enough room at the bottom of my card for my greeting, but I'm just going to come up a little bit more from there. Now, if you want to test, take your flower stamp and make sure that that flower is going to fit in there. And you don't want it to be too big, so if it looks a little bit too big, you can tighten it up a little bit by moving this piece up a little bit toward the top of your faux torn edge, because I'm going to put these sunflowers right into that area. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to ink up the sponge dauber again, and I'm going to do the same exact thing that I did on the top. Holding both pieces of cardstock nice and steady so I get a nice crisp edge. And I'm just working my way a little bit toward the center, but I'm still leaving that open space in there. And there is my complete panel there. Now, my next step is going to be to stamp some images in there. So, I'm going to do that using the Memento black ink pad and, of course, this beautiful sunflower image. So, I want to get this nice and inky. Now, when you're stamping a row of flowers across a panel, it's always best to start right in the middle. Then you can work your way out and it's going to look a lot more even. If you start at the edge, you may work your way over and find out you've got 2 flowers here and then just half of a flower on the edge. So it's always better to start in the middle. So my first flower will be right in the middle of this card. There we go. Now, the other thing I want to mention is when you are stamping any kind of image repetitively over and over again, you want to make sure that you turn the image so that it creates the look of just different sunflowers going in different directions. If they all face exactly the same way, it looks too much like a pattern. So this one I'm going to stamp kind of turned a little bit this way, and I'm going to make sure that one of the petals is not inside my card, so it's kind of sticking off the edge. You can see that kind of went off the edge there. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side, making sure that something kind of hangs off the edge there and that it's facing in a different direction as well. So there we go. There is my last sunflower. So now I have that beautiful trio of sunflowers. Now that I have the black ink pad out, I am going to stamp my greeting now. And I'm going to do that right here at the bottom. And make sure that it's straight. And add my little happy Thanksgiving down there. Okay. So now, my last step is to take this Tangelo ink, and I want to really brighten up these flowers. I really want to accent them. And by leaving that little bit of ivory showing in the center, now when I add this bright orange onto those flowers, it's really going to make that color jump out. So I'm going to start with the middle one. I'm going to go right into the center, and I'm going to start working in a circular motion. So see how that just kind of makes the inside of that flower glow? Now I'm going to do that on the next one. And I'm going to do that on the last one. That's one thing I really love about Melanie's flower images, these line art images. They don't always have to be colored with colored pencils or Copics. You have such beautiful ink pad colors in your collection that can be used to create dramatic effects without even ever having to pick up a pencil or a marker. So now I'm just going to fold that card in half, and that card is ready to send. Now, if I want to add a little accent, I can do that by adding a score line, and I'll do that for you to show you what that would look like. What I'll do here is I'll lay it out this way and make sure that wherever I put that score line, it's not going to run over either my faux layer, my torn edge here, or my greeting. So I think I'll score it, let's see, best way to do it is to kind of hold a scratch piece of paper up on that line and make sure. I could do it there, or I could do it there. I could do both. Maybe I'll do that. So I'll flip it over, and I'm going to score at 1 inch. Let me check that one more time. Yep, okay, so I'm going to score that at 1 inch. And then before you move on, check it and make sure that it looks good. Now that looks good to me, but I think it'd be kind of fun to have another score line in there. Now, if I want my score lines to be a little closer, I just can put that score line up against a spot where there's a closer line right next to it. So maybe I'll do that. I'll add a second score line, nice tight one there. There we go. I can come down just a little bit to make sure I got that in there. There we go. Now I have 2 pretty score lines dividing out my flowers from my greeting. And if you want to put one more in there, you sure can. Let's do it. See how it looks. There we go. And there's 3. Isn't that a pretty accent? And so easy. And you have the tool right there anyway. You might as well make use of it. It adds almost like an embellishment to a beautiful, clean, and simple card. And there is that finished card. Try creating your faux torn edges using multiple colors, and try using white, ivory, or metallic ink on darker cardstock for another creative option.